my pleasure to introduce the speaker for today, Pastor Paulo Esposito. He's no stranger to many of us. He is a pastor over at RGF. I truly appreciate his ministry over there and his friendship. As I took over, he was like, Mike, whatever you need in support. And sometimes there's the stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about. Pastors, they have meetings and plans and things happen outside that when you're not part of a group, you don't find about. But Paul has been very gracious to sit down with me and kind of catch me up and allow me to share the information with the church as well. So I appreciate him, his ministry. So Paul, thank you for accepting and welcome to our church.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning.
Good morning.
You guys have no idea of how beautiful you look today. Has anybody told you that today already? You guys look beautiful. Good morning.
Good morning.
And it is really, really good to be here. I'm going to grab a few things, so if you'd excuse me, I'll just take these things, and we're going to spend a little bit of time together. So I was greeted in the door. I was asked, who's the speaker today? And I said, it was me. And then somebody said, oh, now I remember. You're the guy that was running around all over the place and jumping up and down. And I really don't remember doing all that, but I'll try to behave today. I'll do my best. I'll be on my best behavior. And if I'm a little bit out of line, you guys tell me and I'll try to calm down. I did take my pills this morning, so I should be under control. If anything, might just stand up, put your hand on my shoulder, and I'll get the clue. I'll stay still. But it is really good to be here. Another thing, you guys don't know how lucky you are to have the youth group that you have here. Did you guys enjoy the music, the children's story? My goodness, that chills down my spine. You should be preaching here. I should be sitting down, and you should be preaching here. Believe me. And the music, the praise team, everything. You guys need to be grateful for the youth that we have in this church. It is a gift. And it's not the future of our church, it's the very present. And I want to tell you guys that you guys bring joy to my heart. And I hope that to see groups like you all over the place, because that is exciting, it's exhilarating, and this is your church, guys. So I'm glad you have an opportunity to do what you do. And I hope you guys get to do that even more often. All right, let's get started, because if not, this will go really long. Have you ever encountered something that was so simple that it was hard to believe? Yes? No? We're going to be looking at a story in the Bible that is found in Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13. Now, since the beginning of the year, I've been studying this concept of the kingdom of God. And it's literally blown my mind. Well, not literally, because my mind is still inside. I'm still alive. But it has expanded my way of thinking. And I'm already at about 9 messages that I have prepared from this concept of the kingdom of heaven. And each time I think I'm done, I discover something new. So if you want to invite me 8 more times, we can go into it. But today I want to share the one that made my heart skip a beat. So let's put this in context. Matthew chapter 5. Do you guys remember Matthew chapter 5? What is it known as? The Sermon on the Mount, right? And it is one of the most renowned expositions that Jesus ever gave. And he's sitting on the mount and he's introducing his philosophy about this world. And he tells them, blessed are the poor in spirit, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And it says that at this point, the crowd started coming around Jesus, and they started following, and he starts telling them about all this moral virtue of how the kingdom of heaven should be. And it tells them the blessed in spirit, the meek, the poor, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And people connected with this message and started following Jesus. Now, Matthew chapter 13 is a slightly different setting. So I'm going to ask you all to stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. All right. Matthew chapter 13, verse 1 says that Jesus went out of the house and he went by the lake. And the crowd started coming, and he sat down on a little boat, and the crowd were standing there hearing him. What if we did church like they did back then, right? The problem of falling asleep is already solved. So you're standing, you cannot do that. And I can preach for 3 hours because I'm just sitting here, right? But he was just sitting there. And the crowds were standing, and they were listening. You guys can sit down. I got my point across, all right? At least you're awake. I know that much. Good. And as they we're standing here, something amazing happens, because at the end of that sermon, John 6, chapter 6, verse 60, I believe it says, that the crowds started leaving him. So after chapter 13, after the Sermon on the Lake, so we had the Sermon on the Mount, and now we have the Sermon on the Lake. After the Sermon on the Lake, the crowds around Jesus started dissipating and disappearing. Why did that happen? Why did that happen? And here's the interesting thing. It wasn't that Jesus' message was too difficult to follow. It wasn't necessarily at this point that the cost of following Jesus was too expensive. John 6 tells us that they didn't understand. And because they didn't understand, a lot of them got frustrated and started leaving. Let me give you a little illustration of how that might look like. There was a time on this earth, on this planet, where an evil king ruled. He ruled over our lives. And he was a cruel and mean and ugly, ugly king. He liked to crash his victims. And he liked to make things that were disappear forever. His name was Windows. He was an evil king. And he used to crash all the time, and his victims would be left crying and weeping, and files would just disappear. And in order to get anything done, you had to count on magic, because the wizards had to come and install programs. Remember the wizards? Install wizard. And you had to obey orders, and you had to click next, 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 accept, accept, yes, yes, yes. And finally, maybe if the stars aligned and the gods were happy, maybe what you wanted to happen would happen. And then if you needed something to disappear, you would have to find the all-powerful general uninstaller. And if he wasn't around, you were in trouble, because you couldn't get rid of those things that would just stick around. And if you tried to do it your own way, then the whole system would come crushing down and your life would be miserable. But then, when all hope was lost, a good king came along. A king of beauty and simplicity. A king that made everybody happy and joyful. And that king in me found a faithful follower. And I love this king. I still do to this very same day. So I started to spread the news about this new kingdom. And I told my dad, there's something better out there than what you're using. And he told me, no, it cannot be. And I said, yes, yes, yes. And we went and we got him his first Mac. And he was happy. But then my problem started emerging. I would get phone calls. Say, Paulo, I need to install a new program. What do I do? Where's the installer? No, Dad, you don't need an installer. You just drag and drop into the applications folder. What? No way! It cannot really be that simple. Yes, Dad. Just drag and drop. No. Cannot be that way. So I would go to his house, I would drag and drop. And then I would get another call. Paulo, I have a problem. I need to uninstall this program. I no longer use it. I need to find the uninstaller. And I spent like 2 hours looking for the uninstaller, and I cannot find it. Dad, just delete the application. No! It cannot be that simple. If I do that, the whole system is going to come crashing down. No, Dad. Just delete the program. Sometimes it is so simple that it is hard to understand. So Jesus is sitting there by the lake. That's the Lake of Galilee, actually. The Sea of Galilee. They call it a sea. It's just a glorified lake, and not even that. And he's sitting there. And he's trying to think, how will I explain to this people how my kingdom is like? And he sees away in the hills a farmer planting seeds. He says, oh, I know. It's like a sower planting seeds. If you invite me again, we can go into the one, but we have to skip that one today. And then he said, whoa. And then he looked again, and then he saw the weeds coming in another field. I said, I'll tell them how the kingdom is. And he starts painting this picture about the kingdom. And then afar in the field, he sees a man walking on the field. And then he looks to the side, and he says, he sees all the merchant shops on the side of the legs. And he tells them, and he thinks, oh, I know what I'll tell them. This is what the kingdom of heaven is like. So today I want us to focus on just 2 verses of that entire chapter. It's taken me about 4 weeks to get over that chapter myself with my church, but I'm going to pick the one that I like the most. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 13, verse 44 through 45. There's an old rabbinical legend that says that Scripture is like a 7-sided jam. And each time you turn it, you look at it from a slightly different angle. Light shines through it before you begin to see new glimpses, new colors, new beauty as you turn that gem over and over again. So today I want us to get this 2 little verses, and we're just going to grab the gem, and we're going to turn it sideways a couple of times, and we're going to start seeing the picture that emerges from this little parable about the kingdom of heaven. At this point, you should be wondering what's in this box. Yes? No? What do you think is in the box?
Air.
Hair?
Air.
Air. Okay. Well, there's definitely air in there. I mean, there's air in everything. Oh, you're smart. You're very smart.
Is it from Amazon?
Something from Amazon? No, I don't see Amazon there.
Okay.
It could be. I get a lot of Amazon boxes, but not this one. Boxes give me like the Twitch effect. Being a pastor's kid myself, I have moved many times in my life. And actually, in my short ministry, I haven't lived in a place for more than 2.5 years. Actually, my clock is beginning to run out as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to start seeing these boxes again. People in my church like to move all the time, and I never thought that in a pastor's job description would fall being a professional mover. I have moved more than a dozen people in my church already, so each time I see these boxes, my back begins to hurt, my forehead begins to sweat. But in these boxes, we carry the things we love. And many times, in these boxes are great treasures. So in this box, there's something extremely valuable. In this box, it's my treasure. And maybe at the end, I'll show you what's inside. Maybe. We'll see about that. All right, Matthew chapter 13. You with me? Yes. Let's start very simple. 13:44 says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. So let's start very simple. Let's grab the gem and let's just look at it point blank. It says that the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure. So what's a treasure? The kingdom of heaven. Good. So what's the very first thing we can assume from that? Let's see, young guys and girls. What's the very first thing? It's like a treasure that is hidden. What can we infer from that? First of all,
Valuable.
it is extremely valuable. And the second thing is that it's hidden. How do you hide something? How is a treasure hidden? Buried? Okay. How many of you thought buried? Can I see your raise of hands? Really? I don't believe you guys. I think 99% of us thought it was buried. The Bible nowhere says that it was buried, actually. Nowhere in the Bible says that the treasure was buried. But that's our first assumption. But is there even a better way to hide something? What's the best way to hide something?
Out in the open.
To hide it in plain sight. I don't want to make a theological debate about how the treasure was hidden, okay? But just keep your mind open. How was the treasure hidden? Well, the first thing that we know, it was hidden. And it was of great value. The best way to hide things many times is in plain sight. Let me tell you a little story. Over the last few years, I spent a lot of hours on the road, just driving and I've been doing a lot of traveling and spent way too many hours on the road. A lot of times with my family, because they come with me. We used to live in Michigan, and we still work part-time in Maryland. So I used to make the Michigan-Maryland trip, which is about 8.5 hours if I'm driving alone, about 12 hours if I'm with my entire family. Yes, it's a huge difference. Stop every 50 miles or so, but anyways. And during that time that I'm driving, most of the time I'm concentrating on the road, and a little portion of the time I'm concentrating on my cell phone. Well, no, I should be concentrating on the road the whole time, but we'll leave that for another time. But my son Christian, who I wish was here, but he went to his church, he had something to do there. My son Christian would get to look out the window and he would begin to see things. And my son Christian, he loves dinosaurs. So I would be driving and I would hear Christian in the back say, Dad, 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 look out the window, look at the clouds. Say, what, Christian, what? Look, it's two dinosaurs dancing to the ABC song. And he would have a blast looking at the dinosaurs dancing. And sometimes you just have to see it. Or he would say, look, Dad, that's a mean dinosaur. He has a gun and he's going to rob a 7-Eleven. Look at that dinosaur. That's a mean dinosaur. I don't like that dinosaur. And sometimes all it takes is for you to look, to begin to see things that were always there and you just begun to see them. Maybe you're in love and you look at the sky and all you can see is hearts. Or maybe you've been through a breakup and everywhere you look, there's the old couple kissing and enjoying their love for each other. Or maybe you're going through an existential crisis and the world is just going to end and you know that something bad is going to happen. You look up and there's Jack the Reacher coming for you. Yes, sometimes all you have to do is look. But sometimes there's so much beauty in those clouds. Like those clouds that happen just when column of airs go up the mountains and it makes those beautiful shapes. Or clouds like this that when happens when dust fixes with moisture and it unleashes a chain reaction. And then it just, that chain reaction crystallizes the moisture and then it begins to come down and fall down and create those beautiful effects. Or when two streams of air are going through one way and the other stream of air at a higher altitude is going the opposite way and it creates waves in the heaven. And sometimes it's high-speed winds that carry the moisture that makes the most beautiful displays in the heaven. And sometimes all you have to do is to look to see the beauty that's out there all around us and we simply don't see it. Sometimes it's the regular cloud that gets hit with light that makes something beautiful. Sometimes it's the light and the wind that blow together and all that display and awesome beauty, the most egalitarian art show of the world, which is simply clouds. It's there for you to enjoy and appreciate its beauty. And sometimes all you have to do is see it. That's all you have to do. See it. It's there always. And the first thing you need to do to find treasure is see it. But there's a second element in this that is extremely important. Because sometimes seeing it is not enough. I lived in the Washington, D.C. area for about 13 years. In the year 2014, we received news that we were moving away from Washington, D.C. Cindy and I realized, my wife Cindy realized that we had been in Washington, D.C. for about half of our lives, well, a little less. And we had never seen none of the beauties that Washington, D.C. has to offer. We had never been to the museums. We had never been to the Washington Monument. We had never been to the National Gallery of Art. So in the last 2 weeks that we had in D.C., we tried to do it all. And we went. All right, we walked in. The National Space Museum. Wow, look at the space shuttle. Okay, peace out. Well, let's go to the National Gallery of Art. And we went and we saw it. Oh. And you know what? We went to the Smithsonian National Gallery of Art. And we walked through it. And we tried to look very sophisticated. And we tried to look at these pieces of art and say, wow, that is really, really good. And I passed through that painting. And I don't even remember passing through that painting, if I'm honest. But I can even imagine what I said when I passed through that painting. I would have looked at Cindy and say, yeah, she's kind of pretty. Too much she's not smiling. And Cindy would have said, well, she's a little pale. I don't know if I like her. And then I would have said, well, maybe I never liked redheads anyway. And we would have walked on. At best, we would have said, 2 thumbs up to whoever painted that. Not knowing that we had just passed by the most valuable piece of art that this nation has ever possessed. That is the Ginevra da Vinci. This is the Mona Lisa's little sister, painted by Leonardo DiCaprio. No, you girls might like one. No. Leonardo da Vinci. That's the one. Yes. That's the one. Leonardo da Vinci. And it's the most valuable painting that ever made it to the U.S. that was sold and resides here. And here's the thing. We passed right by it. register. Because to find treasure, there's two things that have to happen. You have to see it, but sometimes seeing it is not enough. You have to appreciate it. And when you see it, and when you appreciate it, you can begin to discover the treasures that are there. And something amazing happens when we begin to see and when we begin to appreciate. Because the result of seeing and appreciating is finding treasure. So let's look at what it says next. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, and when the man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy, he went. Because when you find treasure, when you see treasure, when you appreciate it, and when you discover it, something amazing happens in your life, and you begin to have joy. Have you ever experienced joy? Yes. Isn't joy beautiful?
Yes.
Endorphins are released in your brain, and you begin to feel euphoria, and energy increases, and your optimism chemically improves, and everything begins to get better when you experience joy. But here's the problem. Is joy easy to keep? What do you think? Let me tell you a little story. In December, I was able to visit Bariloche, Argentina. If you love chocolate and you cannot make it to the Swiss Alps, go to Bariloche, Argentina. That's the Argentinian Alps. The capital, the chocolate capital of the Americas. Home of the longest chocolate ever made according to the Guinness World Record. And I spent a week in Bariloche in December, and I experienced joy. Joy, joy, joy. Joy more than I could hold. Joy, so much joy that I was bursting at the seams. Joy, unimaginable joy. And there's a chocolate shop, and there's a chocolate shop, and there's a chocolate shop, and you have black chocolate, and you have dark chocolate, and you have brown chocolate, and you have milk chocolate, and you have white chocolate, and you have chocolate with walnuts, with almonds, all sorts of chocolates. And I experienced joy. Much joy. Too much joy. And that joy was short-lived. Because that's the problem with joy. Because there's two kinds of joy. There's the joy that comes, and then there's the joy that leaves. Have you ever heard a couple that just began dating? Everything's beautiful. Oh, she's perfect. He's the one. Oh my goodness, I am so happy. I have butterflies in my tummy. I don't need to eat. I don't need to drink. I just have to look into her eyes. And then they get married. And a year passes by. And the love is still there, I want to believe. But the joy has morphed into something else. Marriage is hard work, man. You have to work at this. Marriage is really hard work. And there is still love, but for some reason, the joy begins to change. Have you ever seen parents of a brand new baby? And they hold them. And they call them this little bundle of joy. The miracle of life. Cindy and I had two babies. That miracle is quite gruesome and shocking. And anyways, I'm not going to romanticize it. But that bundle of joy the first night is so beautiful. And you're up all night, you're just looking into those little fingers. But then 30 nights go by. And you haven't slept. You haven't eaten. You haven't taken a shower. You haven't shaved. You haven't had a peaceful meal. And the love is still there. But some of the joy has gone away. And that's the problem of joy, isn't it? But then, there's another type of joy. A joy that doesn't fade. Have you ever seen that? You see it in that person that has far less than you. And somehow is much happier. You see it when you travel and you begin to go into these neighborhoods in countries that are not as fortunate as ours. House made of tin and cardboard. And you see people that have nothing, and yet they're smiling and jumping. You see it in people who are going through difficulties, that are far larger than yours. And somehow, they're not nearly as anxious as you are. I saw it when I went to visit Carlos in the hospital. Halfway through his 29th year of life, pancreatic cancer was found in his body. In 3 months, that cancer took over every single organ in his body. In 6 months, he breathed his last. And I would go visit him. And I would go in to encourage him. And he would be the one who would encourage me. A type of joy that doesn't fade. Have you seen it? That is kingdom joy. A joy that is indescribable. A joy that is incomparable. A joy that is incontainable. A joy that is insustainable. It's a joy that cannot be explained with words. It's a joy that cannot be even understood. That, my friends, is kingdom joy. And when you see the treasure, when you appreciate it, you begin to experience that joy. And the question is, what would you give to have that story of joy? Would you give your money for that joy? Would you give your time to have that kind of joy? Would you give your energies? Would you give your home? Your car? Would you give your family? Would you give yourself to have that type of joy? Let's turn the gem a little more to see what else we can see there. Because then it says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy he went and sold all he had, and he bought that field. Very basic question. Why did the man buy the field? Why did he buy the field?
That's where his joy is.
He wanted the treasure.
He wanted the treasure. You guys agree? Why did he buy the field? So no one else could take the treasure? Okay. So here's a very basic question. Why not just take the treasure?
He wanted the
Finders,
possession.
keeper.
Yeah, mhm.
Why not? Why not just take the treasure? Why did the man buy the field? Why?
Belongs to someone else.
Owner rights? Okay. Very good point. That one always has to come up. Are you a lawyer by any chance? No? It usually comes from the very moralistic lawyer types of people, you know? So he buys the field because it's the right thing to do, right? It's otherwise it's stealing. Perfect. But what did he do? He hid the field. He hid the treasure. So no one else could see it, and then he went and bought the field. Is that morally correct? Is that honest? That's like buying Texas from Mexico with Texan gold. Does that make any sense? Well, let's not get into politics. Yeah, I'm going to lose that one, so let's forget that. Is this parable about morality?
No. No.
Because that is a pretty shady deal. I'll go hide it so no one knows, and then I'm gonna buy them, and then I'm not even gonna know what they sold me. Is that how God is?
No.
Maybe there's something more going on here. Because what if the treasure and the field are so intricately connected that they cannot be separated, one from the other? Let me tell you a little story. The year was 1960. There was a guy named John who was a land developer. He was traveling from Washington, D.C., all the way to Los Angeles, California, and on his way, he stopped by every city, and when he was almost getting to Los Angeles, he arrived at Phoenix, Arizona, and he saw premier that nobody had developed it. And that began to drive him crazy because he was a land developer and he saw prime real estate right in the outer edges of the city. He saw this is where the most valuable neighborhoods could be developed. This is beautiful land. This is great land. Why are these people being so foolish that they're not building a treasure? So he developing neighborhoods and homes. So he began asking questions. And he said, how come nobody's building here? And he told him, well, we are in the desert. And if there's no water, we cannot build. It's a symbol of Sabbath. And we went and we surveyed that land, and there are no streams, no creeks, no springs. There's no water there. So the land is useless. But he kept asking, and he kept asking, and he kept asking. And all of a sudden he found one of his old friends. His name was Jay, and he was a professor of the at the University of Phoenix. And he just happened to be a geologist. And John asked Jay, what do you think about that land? And Jay told him, I am willing to bet that somewhere under those rocks, there's water. So John went. He went to the city, and he said, we need to do some mineral exploration, and we need some permit to dig some holes. So he went, and he got the permits, and he went and he rented a drilling rig, and he started drilling. 1, 2 holes, 3 holes, 500 feet, 600 feet, 700 feet. And a week went by, nothing. 2 weeks went by, nothing. 3 weeks went by, nothing. A month went by, nothing. 3 months went by. They kept drilling, and they found nothing. And money was running out, and they did their calculations. And if in 6 months they hadn't found anything, they couldn't sustain the operation anymore, and they would lose millions of dollars in that adventure. On the 5th month, the 3rd week, that drilling rig begins to vibrate. And all of a sudden, at 1,278 feet, water begins to gush out. So Jay grabs his phone. No, they didn't have phones back then. I don't know. He texted him. I don't know. He sent a cow and said, John, we found water. And we found lots of it. So John said, stay right there. Keep drilling. I'm going to go buy me some land. He went to the city. He bought thousands and thousands of acres for change. And as he was leaving the city office, he said, oh, by the way, I think there might be an aquifer down there. Today, that is True North Golf Course. One of the country's most renowned golf courses. I'm not nearly as famous or wealthy or well-known to play on that course, but one day somebody will take me to play there, and it'll be fun. Well, first I need to learn to play golf. But around that area, the most valuable real estate has been developed. Because somehow, the treasure and the water, the treasure and the field are so intricately connected that they cannot be separated. The land and the treasure are one. Let's put it another way. It is 12:17 p.m. Perfect time to do this. Your stomach is beginning to send signals to your brain. The neurological pathways have been opened, and something is telling you calories need to be ingested. And in my hands, sweet, beautiful, shiny chocolate. Would you give me $1 for this?
Not on Sabbath, but tonight.
Not on Sabbath? I take credit. Anyway, who would give me $1 for this?
I'll give you $1.
You'll give me $1 right here, right now? Careful where your treasure is. Yes. Sorry about that. Would you give me $1 for this? No? Would you give me $1 for this? somehow the treasure and the land are intricately connected. If you separate one from the other, somehow the valley is gone. I never really want to separate them, and that is pretty good. What are you guys having for lunch? I'm having chocolate. Okay, very good. Manners. So here's the question. What is the treasure? And what is the field? Luke says this. Check this out. The Pharisees are asking Jesus, Jesus, tell us what the kingdom of heaven is, and better yet, tell us where it is so we can find it. And Jesus says, for behold, the kingdom of heaven is within you. What? Where's the kingdom of heaven? In me. Within you. Check it out, because some people have translated this a little different, saying the kingdom of heaven is among you, because they get a little uneasy with this sort of ideas. So the kingdom of heaven is like here. It's not here, it's like here, among, or something like that. But actually, what Jesus said is very consistent. Look at John. Whoever believes in me, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. Where will the waters flow out of? Whose heart?
Ours.
Your heart. Check this out. Paul, after reflecting on this, he says, but we have this what?
Treasure.
Treasure in jars of clay. Who are the jars of clay? We are these jars of clay. And here's the story of the treasure. It says, there is a great treasure within you. There is a field. You are that field, and within you there's a great treasure. And that treasure is valuable. That treasure is beautiful. That treasure is boundless. That treasure is limitless. That treasure is within you. Can you say amen to that? Can you see why it is so important to see it and to appreciate it? You see why that will bring joy to your heart? Because Jesus said, within you there is a great treasure. There is a beautiful treasure. Within you, there is an invaluable treasure. A treasure that has been placed in jars of clay. Yet somehow, maybe you walked into this place. You don't feel like a treasure. Maybe you walk into this place and you say, well, that doesn't seem to be very true, because I feel pretty lousy today. I don't feel like $1 million. My bank account tells you there is no treasure anywhere around here, believe me. The addictions that I'm wrestling with, that's no treasure, believe me. The abuse that I have received, that is no treasure, believe me. So now you may be asking, if this is true, why doesn't it seem true in my own life? If this is true, why have I been bullied? If this is true, why have I failed? If this is true, why do I feel this way? Have you ever had a nightmare? Yes or no? Yes? Most of my life has been plagued with nightmares. The very early on nightmares were very confusing, because they were not nightmares at all until I woke up. Actually, they were kind of even enjoyable, because I would dream I would be in the bathroom doing my business. We don't need to give more details, but that was number one, just in case you're thinking horrible things. No, stop it, don't think that. And all of a sudden I would wake up to realize that I wasn't in the bathroom, I was still in my bed. That happened until I was like 6. It sucked. Then as I got older, I started watching the Discovery Channel and the Animal Planet, and my nightmares began to change. I began to have this nightmare where I would be sleeping, and all of a sudden, my bed would be filled with snakes and spiders. And I used to wake up kicking and yelling and jumping and everything. And anybody had that nightmare? No? Man, I'm kind of crazy. I should have seen that shrink earlier. But anyway. Then I had a dream that I would be falling. Anybody had that one? Yes. Well, I never had that dream. I'm just seeing because that's the one I had. But anyways, that's where you're at. Okay, you're a little crazy too. I'm not the only one. See? Then I went to high school and I lived in the dorm for 7 years. So my nightmare was you're sleeping. And so you have like 8 guys on you with pillows filled with pillowcases filled with batteries and hard objects or buckets with water and other things, and yeah, quite horrible things. So I would wake up just punching around, and then I got married, so it became a real problem because I would still have some of those nightmares. And Cindy would sleep with a full body armor just to protect herself from me. But eventually, I grew out of it. And then I started having this last batch of nightmares. And they were very pastoral nightmares. One of them had to do with me walking out of the house to get my mail, realizing that I didn't have a lot of clothes on. And it was a horrible type of nightmare. And then I had another nightmare that was recurring. It was suddenly Saturday morning, and I was sitting on the platform at church, and I had not prepared anything. Very pastoral nightmare, to be honest. But then the worst thing happened when those 2 nightmares became one. And one night, I was dreaming, and in my dream, I was in Sligo Seventh-day Adventist Church. Just in case you're curious and you happen to be in there, it's a large church with a membership of 3,000, huge 2 stories and everything. And I was standing there, nightmare 1 with very little clothes, and nightmare 2 with absolutely nothing to say. And let me tell you something. There's nothing worse than having nothing to say and way too much to show. There's nothing worse than standing there before a multitude with nothing to say and far too much to show. And that was a horrible, horrible nightmare. But then this beautiful thing would happen. The alarm clock would sound, and I would wake up, and I would realize that it was only 5 in the morning. And I would realize that I had prepared, that I had everything that I needed, and that I would actually be okay. The problem that we sometimes have, the reason why so many of us so often miss the treasure, the reason why so many of us at times in our lives have lost our joy is that sometimes we have confused the nightmare with reality. Have you lost your treasure? Have you lost your joy? Maybe it's because you've confused the dream, the nightmare, for the real thing. And here's the thing, the nightmare is just a dream. But maybe you believe that the dream is all there is. And you have fallen into this nightmare of endless pursuit, and that the treasure is over there, and if you go a little further, you find if you work a little harder, maybe there you'll find. And maybe you buy into this endless pursuit of treasure, and maybe that has robbed you of the treasure because you're always pursuing what's over there instead of looking at what is here, and you're always not enough, and you're always not there yet, and maybe you confuse that for the real thing. Maybe you simply need to wake up, because maybe you're living in the nightmare of endless pursuit. Maybe you're living the nightmare of inadequacy. You feel that you're not enough. You feel that you're inadequate. You feel that you'll never measure up. You feel like you've failed, and you've failed it before, and you'll fail again, and you tried and it didn't work out, so why even try again? And maybe you believe that that is all that there is. Maybe you looked around at your current situation and you buy into the lie that this world, what we see around us, is all that there is. Maybe you are living the nightmare, thinking that you're living the real thing. And here's the good news. Because we have talked about the treasure. We have talked about the value of finding it, what it's like. But there's one last question I want to ask you. Because the story goes and it says the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. And when a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy he went and he sold all he had. And he bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. And when he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. So here's the question. Who is the man? Who is the man? Check these lines from Ellen G. White. We sometimes don't give her enough credit. She saw some beautiful glimpses of who God is and the beauty of his character. The parable of the merchant seeking godly pearls has a double significance. It applies not only to men as seeking the kingdom of heaven. So yeah, there's a part of it that could be about us seeking this treasure. But maybe there's another side of it. Maybe we can turn the gem one more time and maybe an even more beautiful image begins to emerge because she says that it not only applies to men seeking the kingdom, but to Christ as seeking his lost inheritance. Christ, the heavenly merchant, is seeking godly pearls, and he saw in lost humanity a pearl of great price. Do you see the beauty in that? Because the story tells us that there was a man, and the man was walking around a field, and he saw that field, and that field had been neglected, and the field had been abused, and that field had been abandoned, and nothing good lay in that field. That field was wasteland, and he looked, but then he saw something, and he looked, and then he appreciated, and that man, Jesus, was walking the field, and he touched the dirt. And he says, oh, I know this field has been abused. I know this field has been hurt. I know this field, nobody ever told that it was valuable. But I see a treasure in here. And I value it. And I appreciate it. And Jesus went to that merchant shop and he looked for all the pearls, and he came and he gave him the big ones, and he gave him the valuable ones. And then Jesus said, no, show me that one there on the top shelf, on the very, very back. I want to see that one. And he looked at that little pearl and he turned it. Maybe it wasn't really polished. Maybe nobody had taken time to clean it up and make it beautiful. But Jesus said, oh, I want it. Jesus said, I want that field. Jesus said, I want that pearl. And the merchant told him, no, you don't want that one. That one is kind of messed up. Jesus, you don't get it. Nobody values that field. Jesus, you don't get it. You look at him, he's got issues. You look at him, he messed up big time. You don't want that field. You see that treasure, that pearl? That pearl is messed up in all sorts of ways. And Jesus says, no. That pearl is beautiful, and I want it. How much? Jesus says, how much? Oh, Jesus, you don't know what you're asking. She's high maintenance. She's going to cost you. She's going to cost you a lot. How much? Jesus said, how much? Well, Jesus, it'll cost you your home. Fine. What else? Well, it's going to cost you your friendship and everything you have there in heaven. And Jesus said, fine. Jesus, listen up. You really don't want this one. This one is going to cost you too much. It's going to cost you your life. And Jesus looked at that pearl. He looked at that field. And he said, I want it. And I'll take it. And in his joy, he went. Because he saw in you a treasure And he said, I want you, and I want you, and I want you, and you, and I want you, and I want you. You think you're old and nobody ever told you you're valuable, and maybe you have a few white hairs, and maybe you're a little short like I am, or maybe you're very tall, or maybe you have some hidden skeletons in your closet. And he says, I want you to know. Maybe you have like a weird haircut or things like that, or you wear really tight pants and all those things. He said, I don't care. I want you to know there is a treasure in you, that it's worth the world to me. And if the kingdom is not the same without you, so I will give everything that I have so that you will see that treasure, so that you will wake up from the nightmare and you will believe that this is not all there is. There is boundless potential in you. What if you could wake up from that nightmare and begin to see and appreciate what Jesus sees and appreciates? What if you could wake up and see the true value that your life is worth and the true potential that you have? What if you could wake up and see the opportunities that lay before you? If you could wake up and see the value of the treasure. Jesus on the cross, as he was nailed, he screamed out, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. And maybe in that cry, he was also saying, forgive them, for they don't know the treasure that they have and the price that was paid. And maybe in that cry, he was saying, wake up! Wake up! There's a treasure in you.
Amen.
There's boundless beauty and joy to be had if you simply wake up and see what he sees and appreciate what he appreciates. And here's a really tough question. And with this we'll finish. We'll sing our closing song. And then I want to have a special prayer for you. What if the essence of the kingdom of God, what if the essence of the gospel was not nearly as much about what you give up or what you gave up and everything to do with what Jesus gave up for you? Because he saw a treasure in you, and he was willing to give everything so that you could see what you're worth. What if it was simply that simple? Would you be willing to believe? And could you walk out of this place with that kind of joy? Many times, it is not new instruction that we need. Many times, it is not new, mind-boggling knowledge that we need. Sometimes, all we need is a wake-up call to begin to see things how God sees them and to value things as he values them. And when we learn to see and appreciate, there is joy to be had. That joy can be yours today.
Amen.
Hello. Our closing hymn is 327, I'd Rather Have Jesus.
Amen.
There's an old legend of an Arabic priest of the city of Jeddah. That priest had a dream that somewhere over the Red Sea, under a pier, there was a great treasure buried. So at his old age, he got in a boat. He crossed the sea and fared the storms and made it to the other side of the sea. It was late at night and he was digging under the pier that he had seen in his dream, when all of a sudden, a security guard comes and asks him, "Old fool, what are you doing down there?" The priest answered, I'm not sure how to say this, but I had a dream that there was a treasure hidden under this pier. To which the guard just burst out laughing and said, "Oh, you old fool, you still believe in dreams. If I believed in dreams like that, I would be in the house of a priest in the city of Jeddah looking for a treasure under his bed." To which the priest said, "Thank you very much." He smiled and left. Never buy into the idea that the treasure is somewhere out there to be found. When Jesus tells you, "I have placed within you a treasure of great price." And when you see it, when you appreciate it, joy will be had. Immeasurable joy. And if you need proof of what that's like, look at the cross, at the price I paid. So what's in this box? Honestly, it doesn't even matter. What matters is by Christ, that's Christ. Don't leave this place without hearing Jesus make a call. Why one of you today experience kingdom joy now and forever? Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for reminding us that you see what others don't see, and you appreciate what others don't appreciate. And this morning, maybe some of us came into this place believing that maybe the treasure is somewhere out there. Maybe some of us came into this place believing that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy. Maybe somebody told us that we're inadequate. Maybe somebody made us feel invaluable. Maybe we've been victims of abuse. Maybe we have given ourselves to addictions that choke the joy out of our lives. Maybe we have believed that there is nothing else, that this is all there is. Maybe we have believed that this is how it will always be. But you walked among us. And even in the midst of the mess, you saw a treasure. And you invite us to come in close so we can see what you see. And we can begin to appreciate what you appreciate. Maybe there is one person here today, Father, whose joy is not complete today. Father, don't let them leave this place without seeing the treasure that you have placed in us. Open our eyes to see. Open our ears to hear. Renew our spirit and give us the kingdom type of joy that will not fade, that will not go away until you come again and our joy is at last complete. And that joy starts right here, right now. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Holy Spirit. This is our prayer. In Jesus'